together is sort of strange if you really kind of think about it. We don't actually sing in crowds very often. Maybe when we're singing about Sweet Caroline, or perhaps a legendary alumni song for a certain college, or maybe even wishing someone happiness for their next year after their birth, right? Those are the times we sing together. But when we stand together weekly and sing declarations, praises, and prayers, it's not really a normal part, especially for those who don't go to church. But Colossians 3:16 reminds us to do this, teaching through songs and hymns from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in our hearts. And therein lies the crux of what we're doing, of this practice, singing to God. Think about it. While we can talk about all the things we might believe, for instance, I believe that the other drivers on the road are just as safe as I am, if not safer. I believe that I won't get taken advantage of by someone that I hire. I believe that my 2 children who are currently in college will get a well-paying job someday, right? I believe that the government has my best interest in mind at all times. Whatever you might believe, I say that on purpose because our beliefs is not really about our beliefs. Our belief is about who our belief is in. And this morning, we declare that our belief is in God. Our belief is in what He is doing. So back to Colossians, it says, "Let the message of Christ live among you richly. Teach and admonish one another in all wisdom. With gratitude in your hearts, sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs to God." So I remind us today why we sing. We sing to God. We sing and we declare our belief in Him because He is the one who's actually faithful and He will fulfill every promise that He has ever made. So declare as we sing together what we believe.
And to truly depend on you for all of our needs. Relying solely on you for our future, for our life, for everything, God. Father, in this place, we ask that our hearts would turn to your word and see you for who you are. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen. You can have a seat.
Good morning, Crestview. Great to have you this morning. Thanks for being here. Hey, if you are new with us, welcome. We're glad that you chose to come and be a part of what's going on at Crestview. For all of us, crestview.info. This is a place where you can go find out what's coming up, what's going on, what's happening at the church. And there's a lot of things you can do there. You can give online. You can leave a prayer request through crestview.info. We've got a connection card. If you are new with us, we'd love for you to fill that out. It helps us get to know you just a little bit. But also events and things coming up from our students, our kids, to our junior high and high school. If you got somebody in that age group, this is where you can go to find out about those events. And for many of you that have just started coming in the last few weeks or months, we're going to have a Discover Crestview class. That's going to be on September 7th. We'd love for you to come and be a part of that. So it's during our second service here on a Sunday morning. Just gives you the background, our history, a little bit about the church, what we believe, why we believe it, how we're structured, questions you can ask. We'll ask you about your most recent sins, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So we'd love for you to come and be a part of that. Hey, we started a new series last week. Last Sunday was a new series called No Regrets. And I'm going to jump into this in just a second, but if you were not here last week, I don't do this too often, but if you were not here, I want to really encourage you to go back and watch last week. Not because I'm so excited about me and what I said, but I think it's foundational for Crestview and our faith and where we're at. And it is a message that I think builds for the fall and where we're headed and what's going on. And I'd love for you to watch that. So you can get to it from crestview.info. You can get to it from our website, YouTube. We've got different channels on that. Facebook, go there. You can see the past sermons. We'd love for you to watch that one. But no regrets. I heard about a dude, this is where it comes from, that went in to get a tattoo because he said he was done with his old way of living. I'm done with that. Bad decisions. I'm not going to live this way anymore. I'm going to live my life moving forward, making good decisions. I'm going to live my life without any regrets. And he goes in to get a tattoo and he walks out with this one on his arm. No regrets. In fact, it has become such a thing. I don't know if you know this, but we actually found out this week there is a tattoo removal company now, a place you can go get your tattoos removed, and the title of it is No Regrets Tattoo Removals. So it's catching on. There's something out there about it. I don't know personally if I've got that many huge regrets where I would say, man, I really regret. I absolutely have some that I'm not going to share with you. I've shared it with others and counseling through some things. But there was one time I actually stole my parents. Stole's a hard word. I borrowed my parents' car one time when I was 14, and they didn't know that I had borrowed the car. Again, still, that's hard to say. But I ended up wrecking it even before I had a license. I was driving that car, and they're like, what did you do? And I do regret that. But there's also lessons learned. Am I right? So anything that you've done in your life, you're like, if I could go back, I regret doing that. But if I go back and change that now, I know you've thought through this. I have in my life. If I go back and change that and say, I wish that wouldn't have happened, or I wish I wouldn't have done that, I would have missed out on some of the blessings that I have in life now. And so even those regrets that we have in life sometimes bring lessons for us to learn. They bring to us blessings that we have in our life now that we would have never received if we hadn't made that mistake in our lives. And so many blessings come through that. Mark Twain gets credit for this quote, but it is actually a quote from Jackson Brown Jr. He says it this way. So it's not the regrets that we often do. It's this: 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed. You will have those regrets by the things you did not do than the things you did do. I've watched that in my own life. I've seen this play out. I can look back and say, I regret more not doing some things, not giving to something, not investing in something or someone, not making that decision from last week to put some practices in my life, to move to the first chair, not to sit in the second chair. I regret not doing some things more than the regrets of things that I've done. I love this other quote. There's another quote out there about don't be afraid that your life will come to an end. Be more afraid that your life never begins. Do something. I mean, you jump out there and try something. You're going to regret not doing that more than making a mistake when you step out and do it. A friend of mine, his name is Mike Bro. He is a pastor in the United States, and I've been around some of his ministries before, and I think I heard this original sermon many years ago, and he's preached it over and over. You can jump out and see this. He has a sermon he's called Making Ripples with Your One and Only Life, and he talks about this concept where too many of us, here's the idea. When we step into a swimming pool, we often step in one toe at a time, and we ease our way in. Don't make any ripples at all because we're trying to just ease our way. And he goes, no way, man. Back up. Take a run. Jump straight in. Dive in. Do a cannonball. And he treats us like maybe this is the way our life should be. And too often we go through our days I'm just not wanting to upset anything or anybody. I don't want to make any mistakes, so we ease into life. And we just float along in life, and nothing ever happens. But he says, we got to make some ripples. We've got to affect other people. That's why God has us here. We've got to make some ripples in other people's lives, and those ripples go on to affect others, and then they affect others, and we can have a huge impact just by affecting the people around us. Well, for me, I grew up in a pretty active church. Growing up, it was a small church to me, but it was in a small town as well. So according to the size of our town, we actually had a pretty big church for our community that we lived in, and it was pretty active. And for me as well, I got plugged into our youth ministry growing up, but not just at our local church, it was at a state level. So I got plugged in with this youth group that did functions and events throughout the state for youth groups all over the state, and got to be part of the leadership of that, and it made a huge impact on my life. In fact, my pastor even wrote me a letter one time saying, Devin, we're excited and we think you're going to do great in ministry someday. And I'm like, no way. I'm not doing that. In fact, I pushed back. I know my mom was praying for it the whole time I was growing up, but I pushed back and said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. And I went to school after high school to be an electrical lineman. And it's a quick part of my story. I climbed poles, was an electrical lineman, said I'm not going to do that stuff until I moved out what I call western Kansas. It was just west of Salina. And worked a tornado and an ice storm in 1 year as a lineman. And I said, forget this. I don't think this is where God wants me to be. And said, I just want to make a difference. What does that look like for me? What does that look like for you? I want to make a difference in somebody's life. I want to sit in the right chair, but I just want to impact somebody's life in a positive way. I want to make some ripples. I want to live where I can look back and say, I don't have any regrets, not on the things I did, but the things I didn't do. I want to step out and do something. And I've had many people then throughout my life give me that example and show me that along the way. A guy by the name of Tom Beckwith, he was a camp counselor. When I was a little kid, he was a camp counselor. He was the one that actually helped me. He wasn't in ministry. He had a full-time job. He just gave up a week every summer to go to camp with little kids. And he helped me figure out my faith on my own. Not my parents' faith, but it became my faith. A lady by the name of Jean Huggins. She was a Sunday school teacher for me. And it wasn't that there was anything amazing that she taught me. She was just there. She just taught Sunday school, and she was there every week, and she made a huge impact. A guy by the name of Rick Lowry, he was a pastor in Topeka. First internship that I did, and he taught me how to think deeper, how to be contemplative, and he had a huge impact on me. A man by the name of Lauren Deckard. Lauren just passed away a couple months ago, and he was a professor at Manhattan Christian College, my preaching professor. And he taught me how to have a love for the local church. I fell in love with the local church through the teachings of Mr. Deckard. Dr. Don Wilson, the sermon that I did last week, I talked about him. He gave me a chance, and I was the first intern at his church before his church had interns. I talked him into saying, can I come and be your intern? He said, we don't have interns. I said, I don't care. I still want to come. He said, yeah, come on out. A guy by the name of Brett DeYoung, he passed away a couple years ago. I did some work with him as well in a church, and he taught me how to dream big, bigger than what you're thinking, big picture. There's a guy named Bob Leonard, had a big impact on me. Many of you know him. Bob Leonard was an elder at Crestview 23 years ago when I first came to Crestview, and he loved this church. He was a greeter for us as well as an elder. He wore purple pants almost every Sunday, Mr. K-State, and he would stand by the door and he wanted to greet he cared about everyone that walked through our doors many years ago. Bob was the oldest young man I had ever met. Here's a story about Bob. I think when he passed, he was in his mid-90s. So when I was a part of the church, he was in his mid to late 80s when this happened. And when I came to Crestview, we had pews in our sanctuary. This was in our older building. And the pews had these burnt orange cushions on them. They were beautiful is not the word, I was thinking. And I came into this church saying, we got to make some changes. And one of the changes I wanted to make was to get rid of the pews. But you've come into an older church that's been around a while and you say, I want to get rid of the pews. That doesn't go across very well. But I said, this is the biggest room that we have, and we got to turn it into something for our kids. We got to have some room for this. So we got to get rid of the pews so we can have some space. And I worked hard at this. I was a young pastor trying to make a big change, and I knew it was going to take a little bit. So I studied hard. I did all my research. I had this big presentation to give about why we should get rid of the pews and get stackable chairs so we can move them away. And I was nervous. And I went into our board of directors meeting of the church knowing that this was going to be a huge mountain to climb and to overcome and to make this big decision. And I come into the meeting all prepped, all ready, know it's going to take a little bit. And I'm just a few minutes into the meeting, my presentation and everything. And Bob says, what color are we getting? And I said, wait, what did you say? And he said, what color of chairs are we going to get? I'm like, well, I don't know yet. That's for us to do. Wait a minute. I've worked hard for this. Let me at least give my presentation first. But I knew at that point it was over. Bob had already decided, therefore, he had enough influence on everybody that we were going to get chairs. And I still went through my presentation because I worked on it really hard. But that's many of the chairs you're sitting in. It's because of a guy like Bob and his influence that he had on me. Some other people, Don and Tim Bailey. Many of you know them. Dawn's my sister. She comes to Crestview here. Tim, my brother-in-law, is often in the sound booth. He's actually upstairs this morning for our production of what goes out and what's being recorded. But many years ago, people would show up as visitors, and I'd say, how'd you find out about Crestview? And they'd say, well, your sister invited us. Your sister invited us. I heard that over and over. If you are from the Wamego, St. George, Rock Creek area, you're probably here because of them. Even if they didn't invite you, somebody that they invited started coming, and they invited somebody, and they invited you. My guess is you're here, if you're from that area, somewhere along the line because of them. This is where it all comes from. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise, and you become wise. Associate with fools, and you get into trouble. I learned that many years ago. When I get in trouble, it's usually because of the people I'm hanging around with. And if I grow wiser, it's probably because of the people I'm hanging around with. You are affected by the people that you hang around with. So who are you hanging around? Do you have any regrets of that? Not necessarily of your past, but today or your future. Who are you letting hang around you? Who are you influencing to be a big change for them? The people you choose to spend time with will impact your faith journey. And your friends will determine how deep and the quality of your faith with God. Again, 1 Corinthians, it talks about this, chapter 15. Don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. You know this. You don't even have to be a Christian to know this. This is a wise, true statement. We see it as well as iron sharpens iron. That's biblical as well. We impact each other. Therefore, I know this. The church has always been a place of life change through relationships. That's how God designed us. He made us this way to impact each other, to have influence on each other. And when you choose to hang around the right people, you can either grow or you go backwards. And this church, I think, has been a church of growth over the years. Who we hang around, and then we influence them. We make ripples in other people's lives, and they come to know who Christ is. Here's an example. In the last 20 years, and it's 20 years because that's when I started recording and saying, I got to write this down and start figuring this out and make sure we track this because it counts. In the last 20 years, we've had 482 baptisms here at Crestview. That's awesome. I remember most of those. Absolutely. I'm excited about that, and I want to count those because every single one of those people, they count. Those baptisms, they're important to every person in that situation that has made that decision to be baptized. This last year, our staff went to a conference at Manhattan Christian College, and it was a conference to talk about what the title was. What they talked about was a ministry pipeline, meaning what kind of an impact is this church having on future church, on ministries in the future. And I went back and looked at some of the records. In the last 23 years, Crestview has hired 30 students from Manhattan Christian College to be part-time staff here at this church over the years, whether it's in children's ministry or youth ministry or worship or whatever position we can say, hey, let's bring on a student. And I appreciate that from you, allowing us to train future pastors. To say we're in a business here to make ripples in the kingdom for years to come in many places. And that's just the part-time staff that we've had. There's been many more students that have come and have been volunteers for us and have done things for us that aren't part of our staff. And many of those people are out doing full-time ministry somewhere. We've made a big impact on the kingdom because of that part of our vision. Currently, we added this up. So currently, that's over the last years. Currently, right now, though, we counted 20 to 25 students in our ministry pipeline as a church. That right now we're helping, guide, lead, encourage 20 to 25 different people in their ministry journey moving ahead. This last year, just a couple months ago, our high school students went to their camp, their high school camp. It's called CIY, the Christ in Youth Conference. It was in Nebraska. And at that, they challenged some of our students, they challenged all the students to think about their future in ministry. And 14 of our students from Crestview said, I want to consider doing ministry full time. In fact, they handed out batons to those students that said, we want to do that. Here's one of those. And they said, we're passing the baton to the next generation to say, we're behind you, we're supportive of you to do ministry full time, to reach out and do something, make ripples, go and do it. And on this is a verse, Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. Since we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, which is us, encouraging them to throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run the race of perseverance, the race marked out before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Guys, we're doing something really cool here. Not just for us, but for the future of the church. Our missions, if you don't know this about what we do at Crestview, we support missionaries around the world, and 15% of all of our income that we bring in goes on to spread the gospel around the world. So 17 different ones. We have 5 in different countries. So we have 5 missions or churches or schools or missions that we support around the world. We have 5 local nonprofits, ministries here in Manhattan. We have 5 that we support here locally. We have 2 that are just U.S.-based ministries. And then we've got another 5 ministries where They live here in the United States, but they serve cross-culturally. So they're making trips and they're doing things for a global mission. One of those ministries that fits in that category is Margaret and Eli Sweeney. So here's a picture of Margaret and Eli. Many of you might recognize them. They met when they were students at Manhattan Christian College 20 plus years ago. And they were attending Crestview. Eli was playing drums for us. At one point, Margaret even painted in our nursery, in our kids area. It was just blank walls, white walls, and we needed some stuff painted on the wall. Margaret came in and she painted. I searched picture after picture. I searched all kinds of back files to find it. We just don't take pictures of our kids in our nursery and post them online. You're welcome. Those of you that have kids. I wanted them now at this point to be able to show you some history, but we just don't have that. Margaret painted in our nursery for our kiddos. We love what they did. But then after their time at Crestview, they spent 12 years in Senegal as parents of a dormitory for missionaries. And lived there for 12 years. We were their sending church. We supported them during those 12 years. Currently, they're back in the States. Eli is the lead pastor at Washington Christian Church, just north in Washington, Kansas, just north of us, about an hour. And Margaret still works for SIM Ministries. She does their communications, part of their communications team. So she helps with their prayer guides and also some translation projects that they're working on. Still here stateside. Margaret's here today with us. She's going to be in the lobby between services. I don't see her sitting out here. I know she's here. There she is out on the back row. She's going to be in the lobby if you'd love to find out more about what she's doing and going on. And she's going to meet with our missions team again this morning. And some news that I'm going to share this morning. Margaret and Eli are expecting. It's their first child. So congratulations, Margaret. Due in January, so be praying for them. We are doing this. We're making disciples. We're making impact around the world, and the church has been that place. I believe the church should be the place where we make life change, and we do it through relationships. Another relationship that I've struggled with throughout my time at Crestview is with even leadership. So we have, as an organization, eldership at Crestview. This is a structure of the church, leadership of the church. Crestview has been a staff-led church, so you've hired us as staff to say, here's the day-to-day operations. You guys go do this. We're following you on the ministry, but we don't do it alone. We have accountability. So we are accountable as a staff to a board of directors. We have a board of directors as a church, a nonprofit, and we answer to them for procedures, as organizationally, for what we're doing, how we're doing things. But biblically, we have spiritual oversight by a group of guys that give us guidance on a spiritual, theological level, and they're called elders. I want to introduce you to one of those today. So Sasha, if you would make your way up around somehow on this. Sasha has been an elder here, or jump on stage. Sasha has been an elder with us for the last 6 years at Crestview. And I do have to say it this way. I've struggled with relationships at this level because you build strong relationships. And whenever you have your relationships with somebody, there's times it's good, there's times and it's not. And I, probably 7 or 8 years ago, walked through a pretty tough time with elder transition in our church. We had some transitions going on, and it wasn't easy. And Sasha came along at a pretty dark, rough time for me in my leadership at Crestview. And I really appreciate what Sasha did for me during that time. We've already cried together over this. So he came along and helped change our structure to be more of a biblical foundation of elders as spiritual overseers more than micromanagers at the time. And the last 6 years, Crestview has done quite a bit. In the last 6 years, we have built this building. We have doubled in our attendance. A lot of those baptisms that I mentioned earlier have come in the last 6 years. But more importantly for me, I've regained some confidence. And I'm here because I think of Sasha. So, thank you, bro. So, here's why he's up here today. Per our policy and procedure, which Sasha helped us rewrite and be a part of, An elder will serve 2 3-year terms, so 6 years total, and then they will take a break from being in that position with us. And there's health behind that and reasons behind that. And so he is honoring that policy that he helped create, and after 6 years of service is going to take a break from our eldership team. But in that, I want to give you an opportunity and ask you a couple questions. What has been a highlight over the last 6 years for you being an elder at Crestview?
Before I answer that, I hope you guys all know what you have with this guy. Devin and April were a big part of what drew us to the church here. And it is still a big part of what keeps us at this church. I would say this is both a little bit about you, but also a big highlight of mine is the fact that when we first came here, it was very evident very quickly to us that this is a church where it's Jesus plus absolutely nothing. And it still is.
Yep.
After we've been here now almost 8 years, as Devin mentioned, we've built a brand new building. Before you could fit everybody sort of over here in the old building. You doubled in attendance, lots of movement, youth ministry, children's ministry, so many new things going on. And through all of that, a lot of organizations, when they grow, they change, right? They change not just the things that need to change, like organizational structure and policies and other things, right? But they change in their character. And what is important to them and what is not important to them. And that's a huge highlight for me is that has stayed the same. It's about Jesus.
Yep.
And another thing that has always been on Devin's heart, and that's something that's really connected with us, is the fact that he has a huge heart for people who don't know Jesus. And really this standing by the door, this poem that he sometimes shares, like standing close enough to the door that you can see what's going on inside, but far enough out that you can grab the people that are walking by and bring them into the room. That's a big part of who this guy is. And I think that's a big reason for why a lot of you are here. And so that's been a huge highlight.
Thank you. Thank you. Any advice? Maybe you just gave some, but any advice that you want to give out?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. So there.
You're good.
Grab my phone.
Please.
Sorry.
I've got notes. If you don't know, I'm reading notes off the screen in the back. You've got notes. Go for it.
So there are two passages that have been that I've been thinking a lot about and have been really near and dear to my heart over the last probably 10 years or so. And they're all around relationship. I think that's another thing that really connected us is that, what Jesus did is he made a relationship possible, right? That's really at the core of the message is that we were enemies of God and he gave us an opportunity to become friends of God, to be part of his family. And that's a huge thing in and of itself. But there are two passages. One is in John 6, verse 66 through 69. And I would very much encourage you all to read all of John 6 because it's an interesting story. The context around it is that Jesus had just preached. And as Jesus sometimes did, he gave a pretty tough message to hear. And those around him were like, man, this is hard stuff. In John 6, verse 60, it says, many of his disciples heard it, and they said, this is a hard saying. Who can listen to it? And so what happened in a few verses later, it says, after this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. Because they couldn't handle it, right? He challenged them. Devin and I have talked a lot about, Jesus is sort of an equal opportunity offender.
Yeah.
He offended everybody. He offended the religious leaders, he, offended the Romans, he offended the secular Jews at the time, the Greeks, and everybody else who was in the vicinity. Like he had hard words for them. Good words, right? Words of life, but hard words nonetheless. And so in this section, basically, it says, so after this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. So Jesus said to the 12, do you want to leave as well? And Simon Peter answered him, he says, Lord, to whom shall we go?
Where we're going to go, yeah.
You have the words of eternal life, and we have believed and we have come to know that you are the Holy One of God. And I think if we have that kind of understanding of who God is, and we really realize that he is the Holy One of God, like there is no place to go. Like you can't unhear that, and you can't unknow that. Like that is who God is. And the other verse that sort of goes, for me, goes alongside with that is Matthew 6, 5 through 13, which is the Lord's Prayer. And, you know, one of the things he says in there, when he says, when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows that what you need before you ask him. Pray then like this. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And obviously everybody knows how that goes on. But the verse that really sticks with me is this. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I've always tried to imagine, how is it in heaven? Right? I mean, when God speaks a word, the angels are at attention. Right? There is nothing that doesn't happen exactly the way he wants it to. And when we look around, that is not the case around us. But I think what God calls us is out of that relationship that he has called us into with him and with his Father, is to then be his hands and feet wherever we are. And when I was young, I always thought, you know, if you want to serve God, you have to be in ministry.
Right.
And I think what God has taught me over the years is that wherever you are is ministry, right? So whatever job you have, wherever you go to school, whatever high or low or whatever position you have, that is your ministry. And I think that's what God is calling us. And so that's a little bit of my advice, I guess, is to just, you know, if we can be fully sold out to Jesus, and if we can fully embrace the place that he has put us into, and we can work at that place to make it here on earth as it is in heaven, meaning that when God speaks to us and he says something, that we go and we don't question it, but we just go and do it. You know, we serve an amazing God, and we have an opportunity to influence the people around us. Not by talking a lot, but by doing a lot, right? By being his hands and feet and by really showing up. And so, yeah, I think that's my advice.
The regret comes by not doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would wholeheartedly
do something with that.
Second that. You know, I think the things when I look back in my life, the things that I regret probably the most are the things I didn't do. Where God says, hey, you should probably, and I was like, yeah, that sounds too hard, or, you know, inconvenient or whatever else.
Yep.
So.
Well, here's, after serving for 6 years, I thought about what can we give to Sasha and Janine as a thank you. And I couldn't think of anything. I mean, a little plaque to put on your desk. Sasha doesn't need anything from us, probably doesn't want anything, a gift card to a restaurant, you're fine, you can go out to eat. This is what we're going to do on behalf of, through Crestview, on behalf of Sasha and Janine, in their name, we're going to give $500 to Be Able, an organization that we support here in town.
Awesome.
And one that you've supported yourself.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks. Relationships, that's where it's all at. I think for us, we have learned, we've been taught your faith is about church attendance, it's about reading, it's about understanding the Bible, it's about knowing theology. And I think it's more than that. I think it's relationships. You might get it wrong. We might get some of the theology wrong. Well, maybe. As long as we have that core of who Jesus is, we need to impact people. If you walk with the wise, you'll be wise. Associate with fools, and you'll get into trouble. Don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Who are you hanging around? Who's hanging around you? Who are you letting impact your life, and whose life are you trying to impact? So I'm going to challenge you, invest in someone. Make some ripples with your life. Don't look back 20 years from now and say, man, I wish I would have done more. Pray for it. Pray today. Ask God to say, bring somebody into my life that I can help, that I can make a change for. Maybe for you it's to join one of our small groups that are kicking off this fall. Join one of our groups. Maybe it's for you to be a Sunday school teacher, like mine impacted me, and just show up to the class. I don't remember any lessons Jean Huggins taught me, but I know she was there. Be a camp counselor. Join our CV kids. Go talk to Lauren. Join a group. Maybe you need to lead a group. That might be something you do. Maybe it's future eldership. Maybe it's not this year, but maybe in 5 years, 10 years. Some of you people sitting out here are like, maybe not today, but 10 years from now, I need you to be an elder here at Crestview. So start doing some things to prepare yourself for that. You know, in the last few years, we've seen a rise in mental health, depression, addictions. I believe that friendships help with all of those things. And the church should be the leading expert in friendships. I don't want this to just be a TED Talk. This is foundational. It's what Sasha was just talking about. Jesus came to build relationships, and we need to continue that. And he points to that. So if you don't know who he is, I would love for you to get to know Jesus, be in relationship with him. Okay, the band's going to come back up. As they make their way back up, I'm going to challenge you on this. Be in relationship with Jesus. Find someone that then you can share that relationship with, of who Jesus is with them. And it's not that you might do too much. I believe that you're not doing enough. Because in 20 years, you might regret things you didn't do more than the things you do. So go do something. Make some ripples. Affect somebody's life. Challenge them to walk with Jesus and come to know him. If you would, let's stand together. Let's sing in preparation for our hearts to remember Jesus. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Terry Holdren. My family attends here at Crestview. We're really glad that you're here with us today. So this is the point in the service where we take a little bit of time every week to do a couple of things that are in response to and in reflection about what Jesus has done for us. The first of those is a time and an act of offering where we give back from what God has given us in reflection, in acknowledgement that it's not ours anyway, that everything we have comes from him, and we should give part of that back to continue his work on this earth. So there are multiple ways you can give here at Crestview. You can give online at crestview.info/give. There are boxes in the back. You can bring your mail, your check to the church. The second thing we do each week at this time is in response to Christ's sacrifice for us, and it's an act of remembrance through communion, where we take a little piece of bread representing his body broken for us and a little cup of juice representing his blood poured out to cleanse and purify us. Now, if you missed those elements, they're on tables in the back of the sanctuary this morning, and I'd encourage you to get them before we do that together in a bit. So what I'm about to say might be considered PG-13. This is your parental warning to listen closely. I believe that Jesus came to earth to get the hell out of me. He came to get the hell out of you also. You see, what Jesus offered us in the Gospels is life to the full, an act of fulfillment, which only comes when we work to remove sin or hell from our lives. It only comes when we take steps every day to move closer to Christ, because those two things, hell and Jesus, don't exist together very well. It's a little bit of conflict. You may have experienced it. Sometimes I do as well. So Jesus offers us that fulfillment by his death on a cross. See, if we work toward removing all of the hell from our lives, we get closer to him in a way that allows us to achieve on earth what we will know in heaven. Which takes me to the second part of this morning. We take a minute right now to take communion together and reflect upon Christ's gift to us. Think about this. If Jesus, who was fully God, King of the universe, creator, was willing to give up all of that, a birthright in a kingdom of utter perfection. Think about utter perfection. My little human brain doesn't do that very well, right? If that's the case, though, willingly given up by him in order to conquer death and the grave and give us an opportunity for fulfillment that leads to heaven here on earth, it's worth the effort on our part to line up with the work of Christ in getting the hell out of us. Would you pray with me? Jesus, we come to you this morning grateful for your sacrifice, grateful for your work on the cross, grateful for the opportunity that that creates for us to know you in saving and fulfilling ways. We ask that you would guide our hearts, guide our work this week in a way that reflects you, brings us closer to you. We ask this in your name. Amen.
last week with his family. A friend of ours, Cohen is his name, was baptized out in a river in Colorado, and we had some. This happens to be this one's son, and so there were some cameras there, and we'd love for you to see this. Just so you know, it's an absolutely perfect location, and it's a loud location, and you'll see why. So you can't hear much, but it's pretty great. Here it is. All right, Cohen, that's awesome stuff. Crestview, it's been great to worship with you this week, and have a wonderful Sunday and a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Take care.